This is the business, and y'all ain't getting nothing for free. And if you devils play broke, then I'm taking your company. You could call it reparations or restitution. Lock and load, nigga.
Is there any kind of a rhyme or reason for the things that are happening today? I think at one time or another we've all questioned as to whether all that we see and are experiencing in our world has some sort of a rational plan behind it, because we understand now that both the Republican and the Democratic Party in our country are basically run by the same people. The same money finances both sides. We now know, of course, through the work of many historians who have spent their life working on research to show us that both sides of world conflicts have always been financed by the same people. And as I've said before, there seems to be a method to the madness going on in the world. We know, of course, that we cannot depend on our leaders. Our leaders are misleaders. There is a science that they're following. They have their own agenda, and it doesn't include you. You might want to ask yourself some very important questions about this point. For instance, why is Hollywood continually bombarding our country and this world with trash movies which portray violence, rape, crime of every kind, bloodshed? Why does Hollywood continue to pump out motion pictures depicting murder and violence and bloodshed, then turning around and saying that movies and tapes don't have any influence on young people's minds or on people's minds, when the obvious is true, that all tapes and movies influence people's minds? Ask yourself why. What is the purpose for portraying so much violence and horror and gory bloodshed in motion pictures? Then we look at universities and schools, government-financed institutions of education, and see the kind of students and the kind of education that's being turned out by these government-financed schools. Logic will tell you that if what is being turned out in those schools was not in accord with what the state and the federal government wanted, then it would change it. The bottom line is that the government is getting what they have ordered. They're getting what they have paid for. They do not want your children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much. That is why our country and our world has become so proliferated with entertainments, mass media, game shows, television shows, amusement parks, drugs, alcohol, and every kind of entertainment to keep the human mind entertained, so that you don't get in the way of important people by doing too much thinking. You had better wake up and understand that there are people who are guiding your life and you don't even know it. And all American citizens, I think, have suspected something like this is going on. But we're all too busy trying to stay alive and live our lives. And after all, what can one person do about it? One person can do nothing. But a nation educated can do much. Why does Hollywood make motion pictures like Death Wish and Dirty Harry, always showing how regular citizens are misused and abused and tricked and deceived by their government, and then one lone guy has to stand up for what's right because the whole system is corrupt? Why do you think they make movies like that? Is there a message in that? I'll tell you why. It's very simple. First of all, these conspirators, these people, make the movies showing you what the problem is. Then they make the movies to show you what the solution is. They know that you are frustrated. They know that the people of America are frustrated because there is no law and order. But that's purposely designed. We're not supposed to have law and order yet. We're supposed to have crime and the immorality and the drugs and the murder and all the other things that we are besieged by. We're supposed to have that. If the government did not want it, it would not be here. Believe me. This is the most powerful government the world has ever known. They had the ability to get a hold on Adolf Hitler 50 years ago. He had a standing army, the greatest navy, air force, military, secret underworld organizations operating throughout the world. But this government got a hold on Adolf Hitler because it chose to and it wanted to. And if you do not pay your income taxes, they will find you if you go to the Amazon jungle, and they will make an example of you. They will find you and they will deal with you, and you know it. You want to ask yourself too, where did Adolf Hitler and the communist government today get their money? Who financed Stalin? Who financed Lenin, Trotsky? Who financed the communist revolution? You might want to ask yourself, what part did American Wall Street play? The international bankers in New York, in Switzerland, in London, what part do they play in financing people like Hitler, like the communist movement? And God knows what else they're financing throughout the world. Why is it that drugs are brought into this country daily and we're not able to do anything about it? We're not able to do anything about the aliens pouring in across the border. I am here to tell you why. It is very simple. The government gets what it wants. There is a method to the madness, as we said, and we're going to explain that to you. Before we get into the older European history of Freemasonry, let's look at our own backyard. Is this a scene from Mississippi burning, or is this a picture of 1930s Ku Klux Klan meeting? Who are the men hiding behind the hoods, and why do they venerate the owl? Simple, the owl symbolizes wisdom because it sees things in the dark. No, this is not the Ku Klux Klan or Mississippi burning. This is your constitutional government burning. Let's remove the hoods and see who came to the party. The last 2 weeks of July of every year, a secret meeting is held in our country in Northern California by the world's most powerful people, bankers, politicians, industrialists, entertainment luminaries, all overworld figures. This group, directly connected with the European ruling elites, is commonly known as the Bohemian Society. Our now famous Council of Foreign Relations, the government behind the American government, is represented here, along with members of the Bilderberger Group of Europe. A meeting held once a year to decide a worldwide scale, your future, a shining example of true democracy carried on in the dark. Obviously here, your vote doesn't count. Appropriately, the owl is chosen as a symbol for this ilk, for it too is at home in the dark. The name Bohemian carries a dictionary definition as, quote, a community of persons who adopt manners, mores, conspicuously different from those expected or approved of by the majority of society and who disregard conventional standards of behavior. No wonder they want no input from you. More specifically American and even darker and equally as insidious is an organization that our own President George Bush belongs to, namely Skull and Bones, rightly understood to be America's secret establishment. The Bohemian Society, Skull and Bones, CIA, DEA, Mafia, and the IRS are just some of the groups that make up the true power behind the throne of America. Like all other kingships, America's power elite hinges on family blood, just as the power structure of the Mafia. To show that the word bloodline is not just a figure of speech, let's take a look at the actual facts. Carefully outlined here are the actual lineages of American presidents and their bloodline connected to European aristocracies of power. Starting from Edward II and III of England, 28 out of our 42 presidents were connected by blood, including President Bush and Vice President Quayle, who are also in fact related to each other. Most of the 14 not connected by blood were connected by fraternal orders used by the bloodlines, with only a few exceptions, notably in disruption, the Kennedys. seeking to disrupt this dynasty of power in America. Owing to their vast financial backing and personal intellectual charisma, and much behind-the-scenes political maneuvering by his father, Joe Kennedy, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was inserted into the presidency. The idea being to disrupt the status quo by establishing a Kennedy Roman Catholic dynasty, and thereby serving notice on the Freemasonic powers of this world of their unwillingness to cooperate and play by the unwritten rules. Justifiably feeling threatened, the established bloodlines of power in America removed the Kennedy threat. Official police records show that the John Kennedy assassination was closely preceded by and followed by as many as 100 assassinations, all of which were closely connected with the Kennedy family's rise to power. It all has to do with the control of education in this country, the control of our religious thinking, our minds, our government, our money, our lives. Everything from your corner drugstore is influenced by Freemasonry, secret societies, occult orders, and politics of the scientific kind. Our founding fathers would probably turn over in their grave if they saw what happened to us and how we've been deflected from our purpose and our mission in the world. It's time that we took time to look around us, see the emblems of power, see the emblems and seals of our government. Look at the dollar bill instead of trying to earn one. Just look at one for a change. Ronald Reagan leaves the United States to go to Europe to visit the war dead, we are told, and he ends up at Pittsburgh Cemetery, the burial spot for the Nazi SS officers. We have to wonder what was going on. Did Ronald Reagan not know that he was going to a Nazi burial spot? Well, of course he did. He's not a fool. And there are no such a thing as mistakes made by presidents. That is a cover-up. When we see things happening on the world scene and we say, well, the president made a mistake and the government made a mistake, you have to know that in a government the size of the one that governs the United States, they don't make mistakes. When we see the Pope and we see the priest, we see religious movements throughout the world, their garb, it's all Freemasonry. I think those among us that are concerned with the race issue throughout the world might be interested to know that here's another Freemasonic Brotherhood of Power, an expose of the secret Africana Brotherhood. This will not be difficult because the truth has been hiding in plain view all along. In the Congress resides the American symbols of power. Our leaders are the best that money can buy. They've sold you out to a hidden agenda a long time ago. Now you have just seen the faint outline. This country was based on the fact that individuals had a right to know. We had a right to understand and to expect from our leaders the truth. We haven't received the truth from our leaders, and we're not going to. They have their own agenda. They have their own ideas about what they're going to do, and it doesn't involve you. All that you are expected to do is work and pay your taxes, and be a capital product for their system, and not ask any questions. I think it's high time that this country begin to ask questions of its leaders, its misleaders, and as we said before, that we have the best religious and political leaders that money can buy. I think it's time that we begin to look at these subjects very deeply